Gearing up for war, don't get it mixed up. I come in peace, kid. I'm bringing commentary and the new releases. I put them hours in to get prepared now. We play on expert level, don't get scared now. I'ma destroy you on a Forza, I can tear down. If you ain't tuned into the channel, keep your head down. Cut the fix up with some Xbox babies, put the switch up. See me gearing up for war, don't get it mixed up. I come in peace, kid. I'm bringing commentary and the new releases. I put them hours in to get prepared now. We play on expert level, don't get scared now. I'ma destroy you on a Forza, I can tear down. If you ain't tuned into the channel, keep your head down.
Bring it back like 10% because we're peaking. Check. Good. Right. That's probably pretty good right there, bro.
Yeah.
I think we can go back.
So
yeah. Hopefully
they can hear
hopefully
you
they
now.
didn't leave us.
They say we hear a Colt.
Yes. All right. Woohoo!
Can you hear me too? Any word on the Daniel sound?
Yeah. Do you hear Daniel's son?
Now you can go into Discord and you can bring Colt and Daniel down a little bit on that on the pictures of us in Discord, and then you're probably pretty
loud
good.
Now.
Yeah, we might be a little loud, but are we good, everybody? Start putting thumb emojis if we're good. Yeah.
There we go. Look at Colt giving me the fix on the fix. All right, Colt, look at you.
That's a good ass thing we had him here, huh?
Shout out to Randall Thor and Asa from Game On Daily who have helped me set up my own show. So, yes, thank you, Hargeet. Guys, do your show. Let's go. It's
much love, guys. Much love for the patience. Sorry about all of that. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you probably think I'm an amateur or something, don't you? Huh?
It's almost like it's episode 1, baby.
Yeah. Don't you all think lowly of me? All right, so let me try to create something really quick because they can't see us actually on screen. And I like that.
Oh yeah, because I don't have that thing live. Yeah, you just need to hit that I button back on. Remember? I think all you did was just turn it off. Yeah, we'll be back on there still as well. Hey, there's Randall Thor, who I just gave shout out for helping me set up OBS.
Wow.
Do you know?
Yeah, but you know what? I'm not even going to do that right now because I actually have to take time.
Do you have to re-add it?
I have to re-add it and then situate us. So I'm not even going to do that right now. So, yeah.
I see.
It's all good.
You all will do.
I don't even know how to do that.
Our disembodied
very well
voices.
anyway.
That'll do you just fine. Anyway, moving on. So, yeah, ignore that first, I guess, 20 minutes, everybody. Erase that from your minds, all right? We're going to pretend that none of that happened. Anyway, as I would.
But you sound sultry smooth either way, bro.
Do I sound silky smooth, everybody?
Oh yeah.
Nicole bigging you up.
So let me give the spiel before, what I was going to say when I thought I had everything right. Welcome to The Fix. I'm Infinite Umbra, and this is the inaugural episode. I am joined by my co-host, Daniel McGee, and the legendary...
Hello.
The legendary fixer himself, Colt Eastwood. Give them a round of applause, everybody. Yay!
little tiny claps.
Yeah. So, Danny, my man. So, could you quickly introduce to the topics that we're going to talk about today? Colt will only be with us for a short time, everybody. I saw the news going around about Redfall, and I was just like, you know what? Colt is in every single tweet about this because everybody, for some reason, is trying to blame him for it. I said, let me see if I can get Colt to join us for a quick second.
Yeah, it was really messed up of you to steal those 30 frames away from Redfall there.
Yeah.
But no, today we're going to be talking about the bad news for Redfall, 3 possible new game leaks, PlayStation's State of Play that technically happened, Star Wars had a celebration, the spring 2023 anime season has begun, and a handful of smaller topics, provided we have time to get to them. But first, Umbra, how was your week?
My week is good, man. I've been playing a bunch of things, obviously for screen captures and things like that. So I've actually started at Metal Gear Revengeance, and I'm loving it, actually. It's really top notch. I'm going to actually show some gameplay of that the next show. Hopefully everything will be smoother at that point. But yeah, man, I haven't had a chance. I know a lot of people have seen like the Mario Brothers movie and things like that. I'm hearing good things about it. I haven't seen it, but I did see the singing scene, and you know that caught my attention with the
of course it did.
Peaches, 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 peaches. I love you. Colt, I hear you're a bit of a singer yourself, Colt.
I do like to sing. Jack Black has serious pipes and serious chops. He's awesome.
Yeah, man, he is. And I heard that song and it got me interested, and I actually think I will go see it now just because of him. So
I'm famed #2 best singer in my city from like 2002 or 2001 or something like that.
Oh man,
small town guy, or what's the situation?
Well, it was like a big karaoke competition in my city way back in the day, and it was like an 8-hour ordeal with on the finals night, and some lady from Seattle came in into our town and took the prize to go to Hawaii. So
what was second place? Like a gift certificate or something?
It was really bad. First place was trip for 2 to Maui.
Wow.
And second place was a stay at the hotel that the event took place, dinner at the restaurant of the hotel, and a punch card for a local coffee stand that was like $30 worth of coffee. And I don't drink coffee, and I went home and cried the whole night.
Oh, well, at least they didn't give you like some coupon at Denny's or something like that. Like,
well, I wanted to get third because third place got $400 cash.
What?
And I'm like, I'm not going to stay at this place in my own.
Yeah, wait, what?
That's the second.
Third place is way better.
What in the world? That's back. Who thought that up? Anyway,
yeah.
So what about you guys? What have you been up to this week?
For me, it's been basically nonstop Resident Evil 4. I think I've pretty much wrapped up everything I want to do on it. Haven't 100%ed like the achievements or anything, but I got me my hand cannon, got all those S ranks on the mercenaries mode. I genuinely think that game is going to be in a lot of conversations come Game of the Year time. And it very well deserves to be, with the exception of obviously it's a remake, so like there's going to be people who don't want to put it in there for that reason, but it should definitely be in the conversation because it's
that good.
Basically a 10 out of 10. Like I can only think of maybe 1 or 2 very small foibles with it, so thrilled with that.
This man said foibles.
Foibles? That's it's a real world word that I may or may not have made up.
I know. I'm just not used to hearing people say foibles. It sounds like something the Three Stooges would say. Hey, get your foibles.
Welcome to the South, baby. So, and other than that, I've been getting caught up on the Mandalorian, which has been real hit and miss. The newest episode might be my favorite episode of the entire series, but the episode right before that might be my least favorite episode of the whole series. So it's very scattered.
I have to catch up to it, man. I got to episode 3 and I kind of waned away, so I got to get back to that. Also, I have to watch Endor, so I'm behind on a bunch of things. But Cole, what about you, brother? What have you been playing?
Watching your Forza Horizon footage, I put in like so many hours on that little DLC, and it's fantastic.
Yeah,
it's so good.
I've seen you play,
and it's so beautiful, man. It's so great.
It is. It's actually really gorgeous, isn't it?
It is gorgeous, isn't it? Fantastic.
Yeah, it's weird. It's like I
was foibling around in that game.
Foibling all over the place. I drop my foibles all over the place.
You were foibling all over the place, huh?
One of these days, I'm going to be a car guy, and I'm going to have a lot more fun with Forza.
That's the new version of volcanoing right there. You were foibling all over.
Oh, yeah. I was foibling and volcanoing. Yeah, the game. Oh, man. just when I thought maybe I've had enough of Forza Horizon, like I just couldn't stop playing this DLC. I've been messing around with I'm like in chapter 3 of Resident Evil 4, really far behind because I'm not playing it like crazy like everyone else.
I didn't
Also, I've
want
been
to,
playing.
but I just couldn't help myself.
That's what I hear. People are like, "I'm on my 7th playthrough." I'm like, "Get a life!" No,
Well,
just kidding.
it gets to that point because all the second and third like runs, what you're shooting for is like, oh, you got to get the A rank, you get the S rank, and so it's like you have to beat it in 5 hours, and so you're just taking a rocket launcher with infinite ammo or whatever you got, and you're just dead sprinting through that thing.
Yeah, that's crazy. But another shocker was Ghostwire Tokyo. I'm like 8 hours into it already. It's only been out like a full day or 2 days.
Right.
And really enjoying it a lot. So I've been playing that as well and a little bit of MLB, playing my favorite baseball team. And just, I don't know. Oh, I'll tell you what I haven't been playing is Redfall lately.
Unfortunately, nobody has. And that leads us right into the the topic here. You know, it's interesting because it hasn't been a good week, I guess, PR wise for Xbox or Arcane, has it, guys?
Yeah, I mean, politically Arcane, but no, yeah.
Yeah, we had the horrendous IGN gameplay, which most of us mounted against because the guy was clearly horrendous, and it brought back memories to me, at least, of that Cuphead issue with the guy didn't know how to jump and platform and such with the tutorial, and it was like, my man. And he talked negatively about the game. It's like, how can you diss the game when you just suck? So it brought that in, and then we saw Colt here, who showed a spliced gameplay of mix of all these different people doing what they do, and it restored faith because people are quick. I'll say this: people are a little fickle, and I kind of understand it in the Xbox community. And by the way, love to you all in the chat. I can't quite respond right now because I'm just making sure I don't fumble anything anymore. So, but all love to everybody in the chat. But it is interesting because, I think we're so used to being on the defensive on the Xbox side of things. So sometimes a lot of us kind of give in a little too quick when it comes to things, and they'll be like, this is terrible, or they'll be quick to be really defensive if they feel like other Xbox gamers are saying something they deem as negative, right? So for instance,
I think it's partially that, and then it's also that a lot of people, especially on like Twitter, a lot of people want to have like just the most all over the place opinions where it's either something is the absolute worst thing that's ever happened or it's the best thing that's ever happened, and there's because if something is just like fine, then you don't tweet about it, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's true. And then so I've seen a lot of mixed reactions all over the place, and let me say this. So we had, like I said, we had the IGN situation with the gameplay that was just tarnished people's opinions of the game. And then, of course, yesterday we had the news drop of the first newly minted $70 retail price first-party game. That's a mouthful right there, by the way. It will launch technically and by all means unfinished at 30 frames per second when it was advertised at 60 frames per second. All of this time, 3 weeks out. Oh, yeah, by the way, you won't have 60 frames per second at launch.
At least not on console.
At least on console, of course. Now, I guess they're telling us you all better get PC Master Race or get out. But
Kay Asante in the chat laughing at us all.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure he is with his little Steam Deck. And by the way, Kay, gets on my case about Unreal Engine, and of course I love it. It's the best. But he does not pay attention to how much he loves that Steam Deck and talks about it. He talks about it at least as much as I do about Unreal Engine. But so essentially they told us.
So he loves that 30 frames if he loves that Steam Deck.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
I guess so.
Yes, I think I got no room to talk, it turns out.
Yeah, I guess so. So it's really interesting, and I'll play this right here while we talk on it.
Something evil is swallowing up this place.
I love you, Kay Asante.
So it's really interesting, like I said, because we have the situation of the 30 frames per second now on top of that, which compounded the issues. So basically they're telling us the game is unfinished, guys. So I can't speak for everyone else, but to me, a shooter running at 30 frames per second, and it just feels bad. Am I the only one that feels that way? Yeah. Quality. I I wonder then if me muting, if that actually is affecting everybody else. Guys, tell me, if me muting, yeah, I'm looking at the chat, guys. That is so odd, right there. Hold on one second, guys. So listen. Can you all hear me right now? You've got to be kidding me. Oh, wait a minute. Sorry, guys. I know exactly what it is. Yeah, give me 1 second, guys. It just struck me. Yeah, it's not copied to it. Yeah, give me 1 second, everybody. Yeah, they should. Yeah, you all hear them now? Cause I did. Yeah, I did. Yeah.
They never saw that one coming, and somehow not on Xbox.
Okay, I just switched back.
Everyone's saying yeah, no, yeah, no.
I just decided to switch back. Now you all should
might-
be able to hear them now.
I think it's like people who are in the same zip code are getting audio, and otherwise no.
right. All right.
How many of you said Candyman in the mirror recently? Is that part of this?
Oh boy.
Yeah, you all should hear them now. They're back. I figured they would. So I'm
back.
gonna have to fix up some things. Yeah, I know. Pun intended.
We'll figure it out for episode 2. We can just leave it how it is for now.
Yeah,
But
when I
we're-
did
we're
it, I didn't
back,
copy
though.
the
Okay.
audio source over,
Yeah.
guys. My bad about that. I completely forgot when I switched over to full screen. So let me
Anyway, so
fix
the-
that while they talk. Go ahead.
Yeah. So the gist of what I was trying to say, I'm not sure exactly at what point I called it got cut out there. So the gist of what I was trying to say is, yeah, not having a 60 frames mode on a game like this is a pretty big L. Even though I probably would have been playing it in quality mode myself. But it is definitely that thing where I feel like there were already enough reasons to delay this game before this, being the whole problem with like the weird tethered like co-op thing that they've got going on where progression is all messed up and they're like, oh yeah, we're gonna try to fix that later, and now it's also, oh yeah, we'll try to get to 60 frames later, and it's like you're promising too many things after the fact. Like, you need to launch with these things, you know what I mean? Because I mean, we already saw with Halo Infinite that even if you launch a really good product, if it doesn't have the things people are looking for in it, then it's just going to be out of the conversation almost immediately. The biggest reason I can think of for why this game should be delayed, like should have already been delayed probably, is just the release timing of it. Because as it is, I mean, Redfall, I think probably a lot of the people in the chat here, and for sure the 3 people here, you know, me, Infinite, and Colt, probably a lot of us would play it first thing. But you have to keep in mind, as it's slated right now, Redfall is supposed to come out 4 days after Star Wars and 10 days before Legend of Zelda.
Talk about
And there's just
a rock and a hard
there is
place. Yeah.
yeah, there is no air for a brand new IP like Redfall, especially if it's like, oh, but I heard it doesn't have 60 frames,
If
or
it's
oh, I
not
heard
at
that it
its
doesn't have
best.
this.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, in a perfect world, if this was a 10 out of 10 amazing game and it was going to like just completely dominate the zeitgeist, even then, you're not going to beat Star Wars and Zelda.
Yeah.
And it's not going to be that. So this game really probably should be delayed, especially when you consider, and I know that people are sort of mixed on this, but this year I don't think Xbox fans are necessarily hurting for first party content. Like maybe not like huge AAA stuff, but we do have, what is it, like 6 or 8 first party games coming out, and that's like not even including the ABK stuff. So like for sure, like if this game needs to be delayed, which it seems like it does, just push it. Like you're gonna get some bad press up front, but by the time it comes out, people will have already completely forgotten about it because they'll have been 400 hours into Zelda or whatever.
So yeah, man, I'm with you on that. Colt, what's your thoughts, brother? Because I know you've had, like I said, people have been hounding you. I've seen it on Twitter. They have come at you as if you were the one who made the game. And well, you said this, and why didn't you tell us it was on PC and all of these things I've seen?
I mean, it's my fault. I went back and watched my preview video from like 4 weeks ago, this morning, and I made that video on the fly. Like I got the footage that night that they finally sent over 2 weeks after the event, and I dropped it in and started cutting it up, and I just recorded my thoughts like off the cuff. I usually write a script. And I thought I mentioned the PC, but what I said, the words I said was they got us all set up on the stations with the monitors connected with an Xbox controller. And I was just assuming in my mind that I'd already mentioned the PC. But also on X&C podcasts, like the next week, I did like a whole travel log of my experience being in LA. And I talked about the PCs and them all being there and how we all played. And so as far as the performance things, like, of course, people are blaming me that it's now 30 frames because I didn't speak up about the performance issues. But you have to keep in mind that this was early March or mid-March. The game's due out in 3 months. And I'm playing on what looks like a bunk ace PC. I said this on Gaz's podcast yesterday. I put up pictures in my video if anybody watched it yesterday. They're kind of blurry because they're blown up. It's like you can zoom in and see them, but it was like, looked like some PC that my work would give me like 10 years ago. And I thought, what's in these things? And the game had performance issues, but that's how it is on PC. Like when you play a game on PC, it's going to drop here or there. It's going to fluctuate. And sometimes it may drop a little more than a console version will, because there's so many variables. But I didn't think anything of it because we're 3 months out from launch. I'm playing on some busted looking PC or some not impressive looking PC that I don't know what's inside it.
Right.
And I know the build is probably pretty old because they're just letting us play this one segment. And so I thought, oh, geez, it's dropping frames. I'm like, well, I mean, it's not indicative of how it's going to run at final version. I mean, holy crap. How stupid would you have to be to honestly think that game, the way that Redfall looks, right? I mean, let's just say it how it is. The way Redfall looks, who would have ever thought that game would have a performance problem? Or, you know, the best part is everybody was blown their face off. Like, this game's going to be 30 frames. Are you kidding me? Yeah, I thought the same thing. Why didn't you talk about the performance, Colt? Why didn't you talk about the performance? I go, because it was on an old PC. I didn't think anything of it. And I never would have thought that game would have a problem running. It doesn't look like it should be very demanding, but from what happened was yesterday when the news broke about 30 FPS, everything started kind of falling together. I'm like, oh yeah, remember I'm telling myself like, hey Cole, you know how the performance was wonky on that PC here and there. Sometimes it was fine, and I was like, if they're saying they can't get it on a Series X with a 3.8 gigahertz processor and a beefy GPU that's in the system on chip, like if it can't run 60, the whole thing, the whole build must be just in a garbage state. And I thought, you know what? I bet the PC version is going to run all over the place, and we're going to hear about it.
Sure.
And so I hopped out of bed that morning because Gaz sent me the news, and I'm like, I got to make a video. I got to explain to people what happened, because hindsight's 2020. Everything starts to make sense. And now I've got people like Nick Marseille and some of these dumpster ponies. You know, they're pushing their dumpster down the alley, and they've got like they've taped a sign on the side that says "Console Superior Court." The court's in session. You know, Colt needs to be brought to the gallows.
I can't believe you would do this.
Our Hoof brothers get out of hand sometimes, unfortunately. Yeah, so
The Hooven ones, bro, the Hooven ones, and I try not to use the word ponies.
yeah.
But once everything settles out here, they've all become the Hooven ones for sure. But of course, this is a huge L for Xbox. This is a huge L for Bethesda.
There's no way around that.
I'll tell you what. I believe Xbox has been hands off, which pisses me off. And I believe that Arcane and Bethesda have done business as usual. They've always worked independently. They've never asked help from anyone outside their studios. Arcane, I mean, hear me out, audience. If you're here listening, like, there's a lot to learn here because I think Arcane is buried in Unreal Engine. They were supposed to put this game out. It was supposed to launch as an Unreal Engine 4 game. At some point, they decided, are you kidding me? I'm speculating, right? But it makes sense. At some point, they were like, are you kidding me? Port this thing and transfer it over to Unreal Engine 5? We can't even get this freaking crap working on Unreal Engine 4. And we're supposed to launch here in 3 months. This is... And I'm sure, like, there's no way we're delaying this game. We can't delay this game. We're going gold in a week. And I'm pretty sure that's another thing we're going to hear, that this game goes gold like tomorrow or next week. So it's not getting delayed. So there's a problem with the build is crappy. They don't know what they're doing. Obviously, they must be having problems on Unreal Engine 4 because they normally work in the Void engine. Those games run great. Look at Arcane Lyon in France. The smaller studio has Deathloop running at high resolution at 4K all across the place. But they're trying to do a big open world with Redfall, which isn't something you could typically do in the Void engine. But I would rather have Redfall segmented by loading screens and be a fantastic, stable experience at 60 frames than to say, hey, it's Unreal Engine, so, you know, we can do whatever we want.
Right.
Absolutely.
Okay, I'm done talking.
And so let me ask you this, because I think you're probably a much more technically minded person than me, just from experience of listening to all of your shows for the last several years, which, by the way, big fan.
Thank you.
So you played it, right? From what I understand from the previews, the co-op in this isn't like tethered in the same way that like Gotham Knights was, right? And I remember
you can go all over the big, you know, small tourist town.
Right. And I remember in Gotham
separated,
Knights, when they were saying that they had made that decision, it was because having it untethered really hit performance. So I'm wondering if like maybe that's a thing, and like somehow I'm like trying to rationalize because I'm trying to like hope that all have a good time. So it's like maybe in single player it'll run better. I don't know.
Yeah, that's another good question that people are asking, but I don't think those kind of excuses are what's wrong with the game. I think there is a similarity with Gotham Knights. Gotham Knights' problem wasn't tethering for performance. I played the game mostly alone on a beast PC. It was dropping 50 to 60 frames every time I zipped. Every time I used my grapple or whatever, my grapple line, it would drop so many frames. Wow. And of course, Digital Foundry explained there's nothing you could do.
PC ports. So
it seems like
I mean,
so Code, it seems like a lot of these games lately it's a lot of optimization issues. So you feel like that's the issue here with Redfall too? That's like it's optimization.
The way that I'm speculating the way that Arcane built this game in Unreal Engine 4, there is a massive bottleneck on the design where it's taxing out the CPU. And there's nothing they can lower resolution. They can't lower quality settings or GPU settings, because that's the first thing you can't change the design and the features of the game. That's all CPU bound. The CPU is going to process animations, interactions, AI, and all that stuff. That stuff's always offloaded to this processor for the most part in game design. The GPU is going to handle textures, geometry, lighting, and physics, gunplay, all that stuff. Yeah. And so what happens is you try to bring those quality settings down and take the load off the GPU so you can get better performance. It's like just with Gotham Knights on PC, it's like you can do whatever you want. We're still going to drop 50 frames because we are maxed out in the processing. There's no room to take the instructions. There's no room left over to continue to give you 60 frames worth of instructions, or it's, you know, millions of instructions per second. So
that makes sense.
It's a really bad setup where they are close to somewhere, let's just say beginning of this year, they were having problems with performance probably before we ever even got to see anything. And they were like, what can we do to fix it? And they're like, we can't. All of the systems we've designed are putting all the load over here, and we can't change where those loads are going at this point without redoing a lot of work. So we're just stuck with this. And then they finally must have said this week or the past couple weeks, here's what we got to do. we're just going to have to launch the game at 30 because we know there we'll get a stable quality experience for players. It's not fluctuating all over the place and making it hard to shoot. We'll launch at 30, but we need extra time to get it to work at 60 frames by changing a bunch of things that we can't do in the 9th inning.
No, let me ask
And
you
it's
guys
my
this.
fault.
It's all your fault.
You should have put on your pocket protector, headed to the back of the
Damn
den, and
you,
started
Colt.
working on those frames.
So,
And then there was the other problem where people were like, why didn't you ask about the Series X or Series S version, Colt? And I asked about console, and they would just smile and go, we're just talking about the characters and the gameplay.
I mean, realistically,
today.
they probably wouldn't have been like, oh, well, that version sucks.
and realistically, in March, guys, they probably had very little amount done on a console version. That stuff gets ported over in the last 6 months, probably. But 3 months in, they probably didn't have anything they were ready to talk about. And I asked, and they just smiled and said, we're just talking about the gameplay and the characters in this mission today. And so I also said on Gaz's show, nobody's gonna care. Why am I trying to protect myself? But
yeah,
I said I had this big long NDA, and they're like, "Why didn't you talk about the performance?" Like I had this big long NDA, and everything was focused on the 4 characters or the one you're playing as, because they only let you pick one, and the mission you could do. And so when I did this, because I've done embargoed stuff before, and you have to be really careful about what you talk about. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to make this. And I concentrated on Layla. I talked about the other characters. I talked about the one mission. Right. I spoke very little in general about the open world stuff when I walked around, because I didn't want to get what happened to me when I put out my Halo Infinite review. Is I put out my Halo Infinite review at midnight on the West Coast where I live.
I remember.
And at 2 a.m, I get an email from John Junisic, the head PR guy for 343. He's like, Colt, great review. You got to yank it. You have 2 little 3-second clips that we said couldn't be in there.
Wow.
And I was like, oh, crap. I happened to roll over and see the notification. I got up at 4 a.m, pulled up everything, went and looked for what he was talking about, re-rendered, re-uploaded, and it's a nightmare. Yeah. And so when I did the Redfall one, I was like, I know exactly what we were shown and what we were allowed to play. I'm going to talk about that. And it never crossed my mind to talk about the frame drops on a PC build that looked like it was old, I guess.
And
I'm an a-hole. Whatever.
And I get your reasoning, but people are very, like I said, they're fickle. So they're going to say, well, he's an X-bot. He was trying to hide it and things like that. But that does lead me to an interesting thought, because I've seen a lot of reactions all over Twitter and things like that. And one of them that caught my attention were people pointing out that this same team, to be fair, launched Deathloop on the PS5 at a dynamic 4K at 60 frames per second. And many believe, and I had a buddy of mine say this, and I'm hard pressed to disagree now. He says he believes that if PlayStation had secured the timed exclusivity for this game, it probably would have launched at 60 frames per second. Do you all have any inkling of
absolutely
belief that
not.
that's true?
No, there's no way, because it's a different engine. For one thing, it's on the Void engine, and I already established that. I think
not the Deathloop team.
No, it's the same
that's
team.
It's Deathloop was from Arcane Lyon in France, and then Redfall is by Arcane Austin in Texas, the main Austin team. Redfall is the main Austin team. Arcane Lyon is the offshoot team in France that the head of the studio said we weren't sure if we were going to be around until we got acquired. He said something to that effect.
So they're basically the A team then, because the games they
Redfall's the A team. Yeah.
Wow.
Unfortunately,
the A team can't hit 60 frames per second.
Yeah. So it's got to be a lot of what I say can also be used. It can be passed off as speculation, but I mean, what else is it? It's got to be a problem with the way they built the game in Unreal Engine 4. It's not an Unreal Engine 4 problem, because Unreal Engine is great for open worlds, and we were told. Or somebody told me that they said in one of the interviews that they use Unreal Engine because it's great for open worlds. Well, the team just set up things improperly, or optimization is just in the wrong direction. And it's apparent if it's running like that on a PC. And I don't even know what that PC had in it.
Yeah, and I think something needs to be said for the fact, of course, that this game is unlike anything that Arcane has made before, in that it does have that co-op, it does have that multiplayer, and that's maybe an excuse for why it would be more troublesome for them, but it's not an excuse for why they would launch it like that. You know what I mean?
Right.
they should have probably known going into it, like, hey, there's going to be a lot of performance issues on this, and because it's a shooter, those are going to be things that people are especially really cognizant of. And they probably should have held on to that release date and like maybe
there's
done a little bit more.
There's a lot of things that come to my mind now that there's a big outcry, right? That I talked about in my video yesterday. You know, all this stuff, like the light bulb came on yesterday morning, and I don't normally get up while I'm like, you know, just got out of bed, brushed my teeth, and got in front of my microphone. I'm like, you know, because I was, you know, exhausted.
Me.
Yeah, and I made this video, and one of the things I said in the video was the guy next to me. He's got this like 800,000 sub channel. Right. He goes, bro, you see the frame drops? Because we took a little break, and I said, yeah, I've had them here or there. Sometimes it's not going. He goes, when they weren't looking, I went into the settings and tried to drop the resolution because he's mostly a PC gamer to get more performance out of it, get settled out. He goes, it was already at 1080p. I go, what? 1080p? I'm like, they bring us out here at 1080p, and that didn't, like, you know, I didn't really remember that moment, but I thought, oh man, this must be, you know, early build, you know, that kind of crap. But yeah, it's a bummer.
It's rough. I think the thing that makes it so damning for me is that like this was already a game that you know, it wasn't exactly blowing my skirt up. You know, it wasn't a game that I was like, oh, this is going to take the world by storm. It was something where it's like, this could be good. Hopefully, you know, hopefully it gets the audience that it needs. And then like all this bad press happens, and it's like, well, it's probably not gonna now. Like it's gonna have to have like a Sea of Thieves level thing where it starts really slow and like builds.
I mean, this is not the Xbox version of Forspoken. You know,
no, it's not that bad. Hopefully.
At the very worst, I can't see it getting anything lower than a mid 70, but I think it's probably going to settle around at a high 70. But before this debacle with the 60 frames thing, I thought, you know, this game's going to get an 82. It really depends on how great and satisfying that world is to be in, because the gunplay feels really great. And people don't get that because they're watching IGN, you know, person playing it. They're seeing little clips here and there. They're seeing Arcane showing off on easy mode. Which I'm pretty sure the footage they sent me, it looked like they're playing on easy, because I died a couple times playing the game. I was like, oh crap, man, they melted my health pretty quickly. So that gunplay is great, but you don't get to play long enough to get like the satisfaction loop, the reward loop that goes on between going out, getting this, finding these items, taking out these people, and bringing something back, and unlocking this or that with the you know, with the gunsmith and all that stuff. I didn't get to do any of that. There wasn't enough time. So I assume that, I'm sorry I'm talking so much, guys.
No,
I really have a lot to say.
You're perfectly fine.
You guys are doing a great show.
You played the game, so that makes your opinion infinitely more valuable on this.
I mean, you guys are doing a really great first show, and please hit the like button, you guys. And I love that. I know everybody in the chat, because this community is freaking awesome. And
they are. So,
and thank you for not calling me names, guys.
Yeah, don't call them names or you get kicked out. So we had an interesting question from a good brother K Asante in the chat. He says, "What about the idea?" And I've floated this talk. I've talked with some people behind the scenes, just friends and such, and I asked the same thing. And he says, "What about they drop the res from 4K 30 to 1440p 60, same as on the Series S, drop it to 1080p 60? What about that?"
Okay, so that's what they're going to patch in. Okay, Asante, that's what they're going to patch in a month or two after launch. If the game could simply run at 1080p right now, they would not have put out that horrible napalm tweet yesterday. Remember when I said that the processor, the cores are getting so taxed that there's nothing they can do. They can't get more performance out of the game. I'll bet you anything right now on the Series X and even the Series S, because 1440p 30 is still pretty good for a quality mode on a little $300 tissue box.
Agreed.
Keep that in mind. That's good to know. That's a light at the end of the tunnel. So they can't get 60 frames, but I'll bet you right now the build they have right now runs at 60, 70, maybe 80% of the time. But that 20% of the time when it's dropping 10, 15 frames, the devs are like, we do not want to ship it that way. And so I've said this even with the Xbox One X. Like, I bet you there's a lot of games we could have played at 60 that would have dropped a little bit too often, where you're like, this could be better, but it would have been way nicer. But the devs get to say, this is the one version, this is how it's shipping, so we got to do it right. And like I said in my video yesterday, If it's dropping 15 frames, it's not worth it if it looks choppy at many points in the game. So just lock it at 30 and leave it there.
I completely
And that's
agree.
what they do on console.
I think it's more
Well,
valuable
last
to
gen.
have a steady, like if you can't hit 60, I think it's far more valuable to have a locked frame rate than to have a variable frame rate that might occasionally be higher. You know what I mean? Because I think
Yeah.
people are more likely to notice, like, hey, this animation looks a lot worse when there's 4 enemies here than they are like, well, this isn't 60.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh,
But
yeah.
let me ask you
Yeah.
guys this, because this is sort of, I think, the bigger question that has sort of come up as a result of this. Do you guys think that it's a bigger hit for Xbox to like have the bad press of delaying this game and having it be 3 of the big games that were at that 12-month conference all moved out of that 12-month period, or would it be better for them to just launch this probably not very great game? Like which one is going to hurt them more?
I'm torn because
I'm firmly in camp delay it.
yeah, I'm in camp delay too.
Yeah, I
I'm
am
always
too.
in that camp.
I am too.
Yeah, I'm always going to be in that camp if it means the game will be better once we get it. But there are a lot of people on the other side of this that said, no, don't delay. It's not worth delaying over 30 frames. So I'm torn. And just to say, yeah, man, I don't know if Microsoft would want that negative PR for
Yeah.
Here's what I think is probably going to happen, because I will always choose performance, but I will be very frank and say Redfall at 30 frames will still give you the full experience and it'll look really nice, right? And what you'll miss is you'll miss that premium quality experience that you expect on a new console.
Right, and that people
So-
have been looking for specifically from Xbox.
Right, because when Gotham Knights came out, I was like, nope, I'm gonna play it on PC. I don't normally play there, and I did. I'm glad I did. It was great. But I also got it on Xbox a couple weeks later, and I was playing it. I'm like, oh, it still looks identical to my. I'm not kidding, guys. Gotham Knights on Series X looks identical to my $2,600 PC, but it's not at 60. So when you move the camera, that nice, shiny, smooth, premium experience is gone. So
Yeah.
I don't think that that's going to lower the score. As far as the PC, maybe they feel like, if you have a decent rig or you set the settings just right, it's going to hold 60. But if there's a lot of complaints flowing over in forums that, console guys are playing at 30, and on my on my PC, the performance is all over the place no matter what I do.
Oof.
Honestly, Arcane doesn't really have to worry about those complaints.
Yeah.
Because those aren't going to get reported, because it could be Jimmy's PC that could be the problem. No one has to hold that accountable.
By Jimmy, he means
of
Jim
course,
Ryan, by the
PC
way,
games can be
guys.
broken, and Redfall's not broken.
Yeah.
PC games could have problems where like when the Batmobile was flying up in the air in Gotham Knights on PC, and on console was fine. If the game works fine and the PC has its problems on different types of hardware, we won't hear about it, but we would hear about it if it was on console. And that's like a really crappy double standard that we have to deal with as console gamers.
So that leads me to 2 questions. So one of them being that Keasanti pointed out, and I've seen many people say this, why is it that we are still yet to see any of these tools being used? It's been a long talk about the tools. The tools ain't tooling fast enough. So
The tools ain't
he pointed,
tooling.
he pointed
They
out
have Fidelity
FSR2.
Super
So
Resolution.
what's up with that?
Fidelity Super Resolution launched on the Xbox consoles, PS5, and PC for anybody making a game. At any point during development, they can run the software algorithm and get 15 to 20, sometimes 30% performance gain by faking the resolution to nice and using that extra headroom to get more frames per second. And almost no game is using it on console. None of them. I don't think any. I think Callisto Protocol was going to have it, and I can't even tell you. That's one thing they're not using.
That's
Velocity
weird to me, though, because I can expect third-party games not to really go all out with that,
Yeah.
right? But why is first-party not doing it? That's what's puzzling to me.
That's so stupid, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't get it.
It makes no sense.
I don't quite understand it. Did they kind of sell us on the dream of that, but it's not actually?
Yeah, tell me how fraudulent this is.
Yeah.
You tell Redfall you no longer have to make a PS5 version. You only have to you only have to worry about the PC version and the Xbox Series S and X. And then you say, oh, and by the way, we have this great engineered design setup to port your games where you can get better performance, you can get better efficiency and faster input output through the graphics card and through the SSD. but the IO, the input output, like you got all these things at your disposal, and they're like, nah, we good. Yeah, we'll just do a file save as and hope it works great, which is what it seems to me like they're doing. And Dealer and I have had it the worst this past couple of years because we sat down with Jason Ronald, we interviewed him, we talked about all these great things that were going to make the Xbox Series X soar, and none of the developers want to use them. The in-house studios don't even have ray tracing on their first-party games. Is there a game that has ray tracing besides Forza Horizon and Forza Vista mode?
I guess there's that mod for Minecraft, but I wouldn't even count that.
What is on console?
No,
I mean,
not
we
on
don't even have the
console.
4K pack of Minecraft. Dude, I'll tell you what. I mean, I don't want to get into this. I certainly don't want to get into this on my show next week because we as Xbox fans have had our butts kicked for the whole week. But Clobril put out that long thread saying, "Why are you treating the Xbox consoles like second-class citizens?"
And he's right. When I read it, man, I read that thread. And listen, Clobril, we all know. Clobril has been in this game for years. I used to see him well before I even got on Twitter. He was in NeoGAF. He was also in Reset Era. Both trash sites.
Oh, dang.
Both horrendous trash sites.
He was in the dumpster.
Yeah, he was in the dumpster with the Hooved brothers. But he holds his own. He's always super respectful, super professional about what he talks about. He doesn't get into nonsense. And this man has held it down for years. And so if he's saying this, and he's super pro Xbox, you know that it's a lot of negativity centered around how they're handling things, and I think they need to correct that expeditiously. I mean, and one of those things is the fact that it does seem like console gamers, us, the hardcore, are kind of being put in second class positioning when it comes to them trying to reach out to PC. And I'm all for, our PC master racers getting in on this thing and getting into the ecosystem. But don't ignore us here and make sure that we're right here.
And I mean, to a certain extent, obviously people who have like $3,000 rigs are always going to get better performance out of the games than we are on console. But, we should at least have a game that runs properly. You know what I mean?
Agreed.
Like I'm okay with
at launch, by the way.
Yeah. As long as our version is good enough, I'm happy with that. Because I understand that if you put $3,000 into a PC and it doesn't run better than a $500 console, then you got scammed. You know what I mean? Full stop. I'm so happy for you doing what you need to do to get those extra 16 frames, whatever that you need.
Typically for about $1,500, you can get something that exceeds a Series X, resolution wise and performance wise. But then that PC is probably going to be able to do a little extra, on shadow and lighting and things like that. But overall, pretty much the same great experience because a Series X is $500. It's amazing what a Series S can do for $300. But the PC version of Redfall, I'm really wondering what kind of state it's in. And
yeah, me too. So that brings me to
the other option was what if Arcane what if Arcane just decided to not say anything? Would it be better? Now let's just use this as
Definitely
a what
worse.
if, okay?
100%.
Let's really give it some thought. What if Arcane decided, okay, this game is not going to run at 60 on consoles. What do? Well, we can't delay the game. Let's just write it out. And then we get the game at launch. We're like, oh, it runs at 30. Wait, where's the performance mode?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Can I tell you my
backlash when the game's already out, or is it the pre-order window backlash where the real outrage comes? I'll be mad either way, right?
I would be madder if I had spent money on it beforehand, which I guess it's Game Pass, so I wouldn't have. But can I tell you my tinfoil hat sort of Everborn Saga style conspiracy theory about that?
Go ahead.
Yeah.
So we've seen this a couple of times from Xbox, and I don't know if they're doing it intentionally, but it's starting to feel like they are. Where it's if they have a big game that they internally probably know needs to be delayed, it seems like they'll show it off, and then when it looks really bad, they'll be like, well, you guys said it looked bad, so we're gonna delay it. Because we saw that with Halo Infinite, we saw that with Starfield to an extent. I'm almost wondering if they're hey, we want to be able to delay this, but we want to make you guys feel like it was your call.
Oh,
You know what I mean?
Hey, we only did what you
Yeah.
all wanted. Hey, you can't blame us.
Like
that's
that's what
what-
it feels. I have no way of proving that, but that's what it feels.
my
like.
friend said the same thing. What if they're playing 4D chess? What if they did this so that the fans would demand the delay? Then they could say, "We're delaying it for you."
Yeah.
So
And then that maybe covers up some of the like, hey, all 3 of the really big titles that you had in that 12-month E3 conference are moved out of that. Maybe it covers up a certain amount of that because it's like, well, but it needed to be, and like we asked for it to be. You know what I mean?
So I have 2 things to kind of, because Code, how much time do you have still for us, brother?
We got a couple more minutes.
Okay, so I'm gonna try to bring up these then, just to say, I'll ask these 2 questions and we'll kind of get through them briefly. Our good brother, Fun Speculation, aka Mav, you all know him well in the chat. Much love to him. He posted on Twitter a poll, and he said that
I saw this.
a 60 frames per second optional mode should be an expectation of games on the Xbox Series X and PS5. And I personally immediately put yes, voted yes. I think that with the tech they've sold us on and the things that are promises they've made, to me, it seems like they haven't lived up to that. So now we keep hearing these speculations and talk of mid-gen refreshes, and now it's starting to seem like, yeah, maybe we do need that to hit 4K 60, but we shouldn't. These consoles should be able to do that. So what are you guys' thoughts? Should it be a standard that games hit 4K 60, or at least 60 frames per second this gen? What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I'm hoping by the end
go
of the
first, yeah.
generation, at least, it'll definitely get to that point. Because where it is right now, okay, my initial reaction to, oh, it's only launching with a quality mode was like, I wish there wasn't a quality mode and performance mode. I wish it was just the game ran. Like, I don't want to choose between 4K or 60.
Right.
In a perfect world, I want both. And so I'm really hoping that we can get to that point. I feel like that was sort of the promise of this generation on all sides, not just Xbox. Well, I guess not Nintendo. They will play a game at 30 frames a second at 1080 and they'll be happy to have it.
You'll have your 20 frames per second and like it.
Yeah. And they will. They'll be so happy. Like, Tears of the Game is 100% going to be Game of the Year this year, and it's going to run at like 30
That
frames.
new trailer, by the way, for it looks really good. I will admit.
Well, I mean, I'm happy that you think so.
Oh, but if you all
wait.
are not aware, and Coach, you're probably not. Danny has a pretty negative
it's okay.
outlook on Nintendo.
Look, hey, I just,
I mean, I've heard a lot of people say, "Oh my gosh, that new trailer was fire," and I'm like, "Is it though?"
Yes.
I'm
So
one of those.
Welcome to Starfleet, Colt. Welcome to
I have an
Starfleet.
11-year-old son, and we docked the Switch, and I'm like, I gotta try this Breath of the Wild. My friends all say it's amazing, and I start playing. I'm like, oh gosh. I'm like, maybe it gets amazing an hour in, and then my son starts playing. I go, do you like this? He goes, yeah, it's all right. And he's a pretty cool kid. He's not super picky. He doesn't bash stuff like I do.
Yeah.
He loves Roblox. Like his standards are pretty low. But yeah, he was like, it's all right. And I was like, well,
You're like,
people love that game.
Insert Thor gift. Is it really?
Is it really though? And I know people love it, but it's always been my personality that I will say that statement that I said. Is it really though? And then I'll move. I just keep it moving.
Cool, can I tell you,
if I don't like
you
it, what does it matter?
Right,
What does it matter? I'm not going to play it.
Yeah.
I'm not going to stop someone else from loving it.
Right.
But anyway,
So my thing, and I've said this before, and it got me both in hot water and some people on my side. But I view Nintendo games and like the Nintendo community in the same way that I imagine that Starfleet and Star Trek views like underdeveloped planets, right? Where they come by and they're like, is this planet ready to like join the council? Are they ready to come fly and do the hyperlight travel with us? And they look down there and they see them playing with their sticks and their rocks, and they're having a really good time, and they're really just laughing it up. And they're down there eating doo-doo and playing with their hoop and stick, and they don't know better. They don't know better, and they're having a good time. And God bless them. I'm not going to step in and tell them to stop having fun. But if someone's like, "Are they ready to join us?" It's like, "Nah, dude. Nah, let's move on to the next
I'm
planet."
sorry for that visual that he just painted everybody as. Yeah, them with sticks and doo-doo, as he put it. I am very sorry for that.
I love that.
They've got their hoop and stick and they're happy with it, and God bless them. Like, I'm not going to take it away from them. I'm just going to wait for them to realize that it's not a real toy.
Yeah.
I did an unreal or unfair poll the other day about the Starfield or about the Redfall thing, and I said, should they delay it for 60 frames, or are you okay with 30 FPS in 2023? And people are like, that's not because that was the only vote, to admit you're okay with 30 frames. But to their credit, there were quite a few people that said, I mean, I don't know how many comments there were. There were a lot of people that said, I don't mind 30 frames. As long as it's not competitive, I don't mind it. And
Yeah.
I'll say it a bunch of times. Like when you're playing 30 frames and you're not switching over to a 60 frames game, you will adjust. Your eyes will be fine. You can start enjoying the game and get over it, but you're missing out on that premium experience. But as soon as you launch your 60 frame game and quick resume, you're like, what? What was I doing?
Right.
It really, really hits you when you switch to another game,
does.
or when you turn that camera real fast, it goes.
You're not wrong. It's something because I remember before we had this kind of 60 frames per second revolution, and I remember playing 30 frames per second games, no problem, and I was always kind of, people were like, oh, 60 frames so much better. I'm like, it looks the same to me, until I actually played and experienced. It's one of those things you kind of have to experience, and once you do, it's kind of like. It's like once you go black, you can't go back. I'm sorry, everybody.
I totally understand that, and I think you're right. For me, that's not like, for me personally, that's not the case. Like, I'm still the person where I'll play right now I have my PS2 plugged into an OLED TV, and I have no problem with that. I've got and I go back. I just played Baldur's Gate 1 on that thing, and I had a good time. And you know what? Like, do I want 4K 60? Yes, of course. But like, I can go back. It's okay.
It's
like,
also too, like, certain games can work in 30 frames per second, no problem, right? But
well, have you seen like some games you can't
but
just like there are some games that you can't just like scale the frame rate up, because like animations are built at certain frame rates and then everything breaks if you crank it up. But that's not even really what I'm talking about.
We also have some other games, for instance, like Plague Tale Requiem, which is 30 frames, but also like 40, I believe.
Oh my god, I love that game.
A beautiful OLED like myself, that's capable of all those hertz. So
yeah,
that actually ran really, really smoothly. It wasn't 60 frames per second smooth, but it did feel good. So I think
it feels good until you move the camera. Like once you're looking straight ahead and you're not turning the camera, like it feels like, oh, this is kind of nice. This feels like a next generation game. And then you move the camera and it's like like a flip book. And it's a strobing. Strobing is a problem with sub 60 frames footage, and it's even a problem with film cameras. And when they pan or they move, you get that strobing, that fluttering look, and it's not nice. But for video games, especially with these consoles with this hardware, a lot of people are like, you think the Series S is holding back Redfall? I'm like, no. If you need to be paying attention.
It kind of feels like Redfall's holding back the Series X, if I'm being honest.
I'm so tired of that narrative too, by the way. It's holding back next year. Stop it. So, okay, so this will be the last question for you, Coda, because I know you got to get going. And thank you again for blessing us in more ways than one, because you all wouldn't be able to hear us right now, at least.
Yeah, we'd still be here messing with the audio.
Yeah, so he gave us the fix live,
Dude, I got to do it because the people who've saved me, we got to pass it forward, bro.
Pay it forward.
Out of these podcast streets.
There you go. So one of the last things that crossed my mind, and I'm sure I'm not alone here, is now that we've seen, and I don't know if they're setting us up for this. I don't know if it was a kind of like you pointed out earlier, Cole, a 4D chess kind of move that they're doing here. So now that they've got this understanding that we're going to get 30 frames per second, technically unfinished game with Redfall, what are the chances that we're going to get 60 frames per second for Starfield? I'm thinking now.
You just opened up a 3-hour conversation.
That was the trick. Oh, you got a little time to go? Well, what do you think about this?
You got 2 minutes? Let's make it 2 hours, baby.
You ain't going nowhere.
Let me see if I can grab my notes on this.
Yeah.
Hold on a second. It's right back here. Here it is. Okay, so there are a few reasons why I believe Starfield is 60 frames. Number one, it's not an Unreal Engine game made by Arcane.
Okay.
Number two, it is in Creation 2, which is an upgraded engine of Fallout 4's engine, where they've overhauled it. Now, keep in mind, there's a lot to unpack here, guys. So if you're really interested in Starfield, I'll keep it super interesting because a lot of this is pretty punchy. You should go back and watch one of my older videos where I show the main player characters in Fallout 4 compared to the main player characters in Starfield. It is like 5-6 times better maybe 10 times better. I don't know how you measure like the facial
Yeah.
animations, and I don't know how you measure that and
Number of
quantify that.
muscles.
No, yeah, number of
rendered.
skin folds. It is worlds apart. Like the Fallout 4 main characters that they spend the most time on, they look like they were carved out of some crappy Play-Doh and then colored to look like humans. Compared to modern games, okay?
Where's the lie,
compared to
though?
modern
Where's
games
the
and
lie?
Starfield, okay?
Yeah.
So Creation Engine is about 10 years old. It used to be the Gamebryo engine, and now it's Creation Engine 2. So Starfield's performance kind of goes back to me saying, why in the heck would Redfall not run at 60? Look at it, right?
Yeah.
Starfield, so the ponies, I'm going to start using the phrase, the ponies can't have it both ways. They can't sit there and tell you that Redfall or that Starfield looks like a last generation game, but it's too demanding to run at 60. You don't get it both ways. So either Starfield looks next generation and looks like it's got so much going on that it can't run, or it looks like an old generation 360 game and it's going to run at 120 frames or some crap. Like, you don't get it both ways, right?
Yeah.
So keep that in mind. Look at the visuals of Starfield, because I think Starfield looks like a great current generation, slightly upgraded last generation game, like everything else we played this year or this generation on all the consoles. Like,
outside of Forza, at least.
I mean, Forza's always looked incredible.
True.
Forza Horizon 3 looks phenomenal, and right now it is up-res to 4K, and that's only the pixel edges, right? Those games. So that's a mid Xbox One era game, and it looks unbelievable. So does 4, and so does Forza Horizon 5. I'm trying to stay lined up here. So there's Starfield looks great, okay? Because I think everything that we've played this generation. What is the best looking game ever that we've played this generation? Holy crap! Some guy on a motorcycle is like doing a wizard.
That was the funds out there.
I don't know if you can hear. I have a Fawn's like, hey, Games Talk Live.
Hey, I'm just glad it's not me. Normally, I live in a parking lot. So.
Games Talk Live. I was thinking about the other funds, but that's funny. But yeah, man.
Well, I mean, that's the only Fonz I know anymore these days. A shout out to Fonz, Jay Fonzarelli of Games Talk Live. He's the best. Okay, so two of the best looking games this generation are probably Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, because it's so beautiful.
It is.
But compare it to 2016 Ratchet and Clank, it just has some extra flourishes. Horizon Forbidden West is also another really great game, but it looks just like the last one with extra lighting around her. I mean, it looks like a 60 frames version of that game we played that looks phenomenal. So we have not had our faces blown off by new games. I mean, Hogwarts Legacy is fantastic, but it looks like an Xbox One game that runs at 60 with some extra flourishes, okay? So let me establish that Starfield looks like a current or upgraded last generation game. So why in the world would that game have trouble running at 60 FPS? Oh, because the worlds are so big? Everything's segmented. Every planet you go onto is segmented. It's its own little like dome that you load into. Then you get up in your ship. This is why you don't fly out of the atmosphere, because in No Man's Sky, it's procedurally generating this lasagna ground for you that's all just randomly procedurally generated on the fly.
This man just say lasagna ground.
Yeah, like it's, I've played a lot of No Man's Sky. I really like the game for what it is. Like it's a very cool game.
Yeah.
But when you land on a planet, it's like the hills are like with like little plants, and then you got the.
Is that only a man thing where a woman pointed that out to me. I forgot who a friend of mine. She was like, "Why do men always make sound effects when we describe something? Is that only a guy thing?"
It's what you do when you go to take a car to the shop. So I assume it's just all the same thing. It's just the same energy.
What was your car doing?
It's like it started to fire back.
It was beatboxing at me.
Right.
Every time I turn the steering wheel, sounds like I got a baseball card in the bicycle spokes.
Right.
My car used to do that. That's the CV boot, by the way. But anyway, yeah, get into cars, Daniel. So
I don't have the brain power for it.
So Starfield shouldn't be that demanding to run at 60 frames. What are some of the other points that are going on? Oh yeah, I was talking about the world. So everything's segmented, so it doesn't have to run the whole entire universe at once. But one thing that would get people there's two things that get people scratching their heads about 30 frames. One technically is all of the interaction, where you can pick up almost any item. Every item is there for a reason. It's not locked down and glued onto the world. typically if you throw a grenade into an office building in Starfield, like stuff will blow off the shelves because everything's meant to be interacted with, picked up, put in your inventory. So that's very CPU intensive. But these consoles are 2 times faster than the Xbox One X, even the Series S for processing. So there's a lot to look at for Starfield. And then the other reason why people would think it's 30 is because 3 different times, at least twice, with Lex Freeman, Todd Howard, and Ryan McCaffrey, he said, I like 30 frames, which is a dumb thing to say for a millionaire who his PC could probably get Redfall to run at 60.
He's just remembering all those filmic comments that he made. You know what I mean?
But that's the thing that's the thing that kind of got me the most, because the head honcho is like, hey, I like 30. I like it filmic. Yeah, shout out to Rand and Jez. You know, I like it filmic. So will they even push for 60 frames per second, I guess, is what I'm wondering.
So I have other things that build the foundation of why it's 60. The last trailer was shown at 60 for the first time after nearly, 9 to 10 months of a delay. Todd Howard also said that the Xbox hardware team has been working with them very closely to make so they could make it really dance on the Xbox consoles. And what I translated from that was not getting it run better, but to get it to what it's supposed to be doing, which is 60 frames mode. Also, they're upgrading Fallout 4 to run at 60 with a new version. One thing could hold it back is going with a lot of technical stuff I've said today, like in downtown Boston, Fallout 4, doesn't matter what PC you have. It will drop frames like crazy downtown because there's so many buildings that you could go in and out of. Like, it is just overloaded anybody's CPU. Hopefully they've figured out how to avoid that with this game, because it's a problem they've dealt with for almost 10 years. People are still on forums today saying, I go into downtown Boston and my CPU just tanks.
Can I tell you, the thing that annoys me the most about that is that in those Fallout games, it's the same issue across like 3, New Vegas, and 4. And the patch exists to fix a lot of those things that's made by fans. And the fans just port that patch from game to game instead of Bethesda like looking at the patch and being like, oh, this is how we fix that thing that's been broken for like 2 decades.
That is super unfortunate that they allow that, and they even say that we like it when the fans, make great stuff, aka fix what we couldn't figure out.
Right.
But if Starfield comes out and they say it runs at only 30 frames on the Xbox Series consoles, we are going to be back here again. You're going to invite me on your show, and we are going to cry.
Yeah,
put it on the calendar, guys.
Because they're going to blame you. So I got to have you up here.
They're going to blame me.
Like a testimonial or something like that.
How about this? Videos. I have 2 videos on my channel explaining why I think it could be at 60. And they're going to roll out their dumpsters, and Judge Wapner's going to show up, and it'd be great.
How about this? Let's make the bet. If it runs at 60, then me and Umbra will come on your show and say how wrong we were. And then if it runs at 30, then you can come back on here.
No, listen. I'm on the other side.
That's what I call a win-win, ladies and gentlemen.
I'm thinking it's going to land at 30, honestly. After this news, I don't think the priority for them is 60. I just don't think it is anymore. And now I know they delayed it twice now. So I'm sure that's what they're aiming for.
But why should we say Redfall and Plague's Tale and Gotham are really the only big games that couldn't hold 60 on the consoles? Now we know why. Gotham, I've explained why. Gotham and Digital Foundry explained it why. That's why I know. Digital Foundry explained that they screwed up the design of the game, so it was way too top heavy, right?
Right.
What's the excuse for Plague's Tale Requiem? I don't know.
Yeah, me either.
Yeah.
But I have a pretty good idea what's wrong with Redfall, and I think it's partially the Gotham Knights problem. They built the game top heavy, and it's too late to fix it before launch, so they're going to patch it in later. The worst part about Gotham Knights is they're like, it's always going to be 30, and they've just washed their hands of it.
They're like, it is what it is.
So it'll never get patched, and that game has no reason to be 30 frames. It's a great looking game,
and you can feel it
but
too.
There's no excuse.
You can feel all of those little 30 frames per second. It does not feel good, I will say that. It's a fun game, but the 30 frames per second hampers it, for me at least, for sure.
Yeah.
So I guess that's really the last thing to really touch on. I'll say I'm not expecting so I'll go on record in saying that I don't believe that Starfield necessarily will get 60 frames per second, but nothing has taken away that being my top rated, most hyped game of this year. And so I'm really excited for that. I'm really excited for Diablo 4, of course, after that beta. But yeah, and my thing about this with Redfall is, Colt, is now that we have this issue where it's essentially launching incomplete, and they're going to add that 60 frames per second patch later. How later? Because they didn't give us a timeline. So I'm wondering, how does that work out in the long run, and will people even be there still to play it at that point? Because I remember
No,
even
they
with
won't.
Callisto Protocol, oh, we gave you these fixes, these patches, and everybody was like, we're done already. Next, we moved on.
I was too. I beat Dying Light 2 at 1080p 60, and like 3 weeks later, they're like, "Here's the 1440p 60 quality performance mode," and I was like,
"No
"Great! I already
thanks."
rolled the credits."
Right, you're like,
on a big,
"Thanks."
massive open world game.
Right, I've already moved on now. I beat Callisto Protocol
Atomic Heart.
within a few
They're like,
days.
"Hey, we patched the performance in Atomic Heart. Now it has 120 frames mode." I'm like, "Thanks, I already rolled the credits."
Exactly. Am I going to go back to that, especially this year with so much dropping, so many major hits that's going to be coming? And if the next few
Hey, you
weeks,
know
like,
what they
like
did
what's
for me,
pointed out.
guys?
What's that?
I can't remember if we said this like at the beginning of the show, but Arcane kind of saved me some time, because I was thinking I would be playing Redfall a little bit early, and then Dead Island 2 comes out, which I'm super excited
Me
for,
too.
and then Star Wars is coming out,
Yep,
and
so
I would
also
have to
hyped for
figure
that.
out how I was going to get all of my time in on those. And now I might just wait on Redfall, because
Yeah.
I can play it on my PC, no problem. I'll do it.
Yeah.
I'll sync up my Elite controller like I did with Gotham Knights. I'll play it on the Xbox store. I'll get the Xbox achievements on PC. It'll still on my OLED. All that's fine. I can still get to Xbox Party Chat.
Yeah.
But it's just ridiculous in 2023 that I have to go over to my PC where I work, where I do production, and I don't want that loaded up with games and all kinds of other stuff. That's just how I am.
Understand. No, I understand
I mean-
completely. I have my PC here and I try playing the games on it. It's just like, this doesn't feel right. Let me
Yeah.
get back to
I
my
also don't
Xbox.
like when you go play a game, you should probably shut all your programs down. Sometimes I have Photoshop open and all this other stuff because I'm in the middle of stuff. It's like, no, that's my production. That's where I make my extra money, so my dog can have food at the end of every
Yeah.
night. And
It's that separation
I
of work and play.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I have a fantastic. The Series X is such a great console. Every game runs
Yeah.
at 60, except for those 3 we've talked about.
Right.
So
Unfortunately.
come on now,
Yeah.
it's an outlier.
Yeah.
But, dude, you guys put on a good show. Thanks for having
Thank
me
you,
on.
Colt,
Yeah,
thank
we
you for
wouldn't have put
joining
on
us.
any show without you fixing the audio, so I really appreciate
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, thank you, man, so much, honestly, for not only guesting, because it was a last-second thing. Like, you all don't understand this possibly in the chat, but it was not planned. I was kind of like, I just shot the shot outs as Colt, and I was like, hey, brother, what you care
Oh, I
to
mean,
jump
you
on?
and I have talked for hours and hours
True.
and hours, like every month on Xbox Live, and
Yeah.
and I see you in all the podcast panels and chats, and I get to meet Daniel, and then of course the chat. Like, I know all these people. Like, we hang out every single week, so it just feels like home. And you guys will have fun with this. As soon as you guys figure out how to use OBS, you'll be smooth sailing.
I like how you threw that
Yes,
little
sir,
shot
yes,
in
sir.
Pain in the butt, man. Every time I open up Discord, I change my mic to default and change it back because Discord doesn't care. But I really appreciate you guys reaching out to me
Oh, man.
and letting me rant about the crap, because
Well, we had to
people
clear
haven't
your
been
name.
nice
Man.
to
We
me.
had to clear your name
I
because they
had my
had you
feelings
framed.
hurt.
Yeah, they had you framed. How dare y'all hurt his feelings?
Yeah,
That's just for Colt.
Yeah,
Damn
somebody's
you
like,
Hooves
Nick
brothers.
Marseille, what's your problem with Cole? It's like, he's just out there. I mean, let me close with this. The ponies needed this, man. They needed clip this, right? The ponies needed this because they've had a bad year ever since Ragnarok launched, and then what happened, right? Xbox fans, put your hands up. Let's put your hands together, right? High on Life came out, which got kind of a crappy score, but everybody was loving High on Life, laughing their butts off.
Yeah.
And then they drop Hi-Fi Rush, which is a freaking banger, awesome game.
Yeah, I love
and then Forspoken falls on his face,
Yeah.
doesn't sell, looks horrible, performs horrible, closes their own studio, and then The Last of Us port on PC is so bad that they are like hiding in their turtle shell. Like, PlayStation guys have been taking L's for 6 months.
Yeah.
Right out of Xbox, coming through a whole year-long L. They don't have any first-party games. PSVR was PSVR was falling off of people's faces and into a garbage can. I mean, come on. We got to give them the Redfall W, right? They've earned it. They've been out there in the trenches and the dumpsters. They've had to put up with a lot of this. Redfall comes out, it's 30 frames. We all owed up to it and said, hey, delay it. We'd rather play it at 60. We said our thing. When I do my show on Monday, because I'm so glad because we're doing our rant just this week, right? Mm-hmm. Because we got great stuff to talk about. Because this stuff is pouring in, man. It is good time. Even to be on Xbox is still a good time. I think things are going to turn around. I'm excited for it.
Absolutely.
Me too.
Yeah, I would have said I would not have expected Colt to kind of TTS tonight like this, but it's refreshing. It's refreshing. I gotta say.
Neil B in the chat. He expects me to TTS, man. Yeah. Shout out to him.
Shout out to Dirk Griggity, by the way, and Sean and the fam.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I've made I'm signed to.
Can I give some shout outs? Because
go ahead.
I don't have time to always do it, but shout out to Mr. Bushido, Eternal Shadai, Yodana Quezada, who's an awesome mod and he just cracks me up. Shout out to Doom Cutie, Brian Harris, a good friend that we message each other like every week. You guys have been great. It's Timmy is also there.
Mm-hmm.
It's his birthday too.
Game Pass
Daily,
it is, aka Red Tree. Charlie, what's up, everybody?
Happy birthday!
Whose birthday? Whose birthday?
I saw earlier in the chat. I think it's Timmy's birthday. I think he's turning 40.
Oh my gosh!
It's your birthday,
he's
isn't
the
it?
ripe old age of he's the ripe old age of 23, probably.
Timmy, it's your birthday, isn't it? Happy birthday, Timmy. No, he always makes fun of
Did you get to do a set of dickers?
You get a new set.
Happy birthday!
Happy birthday! Today is your birthday. Do 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 do. Happy birthday to you, y'all. In it. Sorry. Timmy, happy birthday, brother. He always makes fun of me, man. He's like,
what?
oh,
Donnie
Sleeping
says
Beauty.
it's his birthday too?
Yeah, Don, it's not your birthday.
Oh, there's C-Step as well. What's up, C-Step? I scrolled up quite a ways. Yeah, shout out to everybody, man.
Yeah, it's not. Yo, Donnie, your birthday was like a month ago. I remember that. It was like a month or two or something like that.
Hold on. I've got a social security number. Let me check. Nope, it's not his birthday.
Yeah, he's trying to get some.
Oh, there's Hargeet Chani, of course.
What up, Hargeet?
Yeah, there's Hargeet Chani. Yeah, Hargeet Chani's amazing.
Yeah, so I'm
a good community here.
Much love to everybody in the chat. Thank you all for coming through. And if you haven't yet, please like and subscribe. And your subscription will pop up on the screen, by the way. So that's an extra incentive for you. You'll see your name and everything like that. It's nice.
You guys teach me how to do that.
Here's hoping it doesn't break our audio.
Streamlabs. Yeah.
Oh, Streamlabs. Okay. I'm just using regular. Yeah, thanks, guys. I'm going to go eat some dinner, and I'm going to play some more Ghost Squire Tokyo.
Enjoy, brother. Thank you again, everybody. Please.
Thanks. Have a good rest of the show, guys.
Put the love out for
as well, and Gray
What's
Monad.
Up, yeah, of course.
I might as well just stay here and read everybody's name, but you guys are awesome.
Exactly.
Thanks for having me on, and
thank you for joining us.
Thanks, everybody.
And thank you for giving us the fix. I'm sorry, I have to do the pun in here.
The fix?
There you go. There you go.
The fix. Yeah. All right, guys. It was good talking to you.
All right, brother. Later.
Likewise.
Now, I'm hoping that once Colt leave, the whole podcast doesn't shut off where you can't hear everybody again. Or something.
I'm thinking I might leave, to be honest with you.
It'll just be an intimate moment between me and the chat. You all will hear from my illustrious voice.
Shout out to the people in the chat who were saying that it's really funny that the first episode of The Fix, we spent about an hour talking about how to fix something.
Yeah. We lived up to our names. All right? We lived up to the name. Yep.
We're nothing if not reliable.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you all. I see the love. Thank you for saying what you're saying. I see it. Thank you, Game Pass Daily, Retry, a.k.a. Retry. And if you all haven't subscribed to Colt, by the way, I am going to fix the description and add everything later on. Brand new to all of this, guys. I'm really trying. There's a lot of
if you like any part of this podcast, you're going to love whatever you can find over on Colt's channel. So.
Absolutely.
If you're not subscribed there, I'm honestly kind of surprised.
I would be highly surprised too. Colt is one of the best among us. So yeah, again, much love to everybody. Please give it a like, and if you haven't, again, subscribe. You get the extra incentive of seeing your name pop up on the screen. Isn't that nice? So we're gonna move on.
Yeah,
because that was a pretty long discussion, which it needed. It was great. It was warranted for that. For Redfall. So we're gonna move to the state of play. It was just focused specifically on Final Fantasy 16. And a lot of people are kind of, I've seen some, at least on the Xbox side, no shade, but I've seen some are kind of like, it don't look that good to me. Let me tell you, I'm a big time Devil May Cry fan. So, and that's why I loved Hi-Fi Rush so much, because it's kind of a dumbed down, more simple, if you will, Devil May Cry, a rhythmic Devil May Cry, if you will. And so I instantly was like, yeah, this is basically this off of Devil May Cry. This is basically that. Nero does that move. Dante does this. So it instantly kind of caught me. So I watched the gameplay previously of Final Fantasy 16, and then I saw the trailer earlier today. Man, I am blown away by the combat. It looks damn good, and I like the particle effects too that I'm seeing with everything.
Oh, see, now I'm really happy that you're blown away, because it'll make this a more interesting conversation. Because I am I am very unblown. Here I sit, nary a gust.
Oh no! So for you,
I don't know. It just It doesn't look bad at all. Like, I'm not gonna be like, oh man, what a terrible game. I hope it gets like a 5 out of 10. Like, no, I think it looks perfectly fine. I just think it looks really derivative of a ton of other games that I've seen. Like, it very much is just that like really standard. Like, it looks like a Western RPG, which is, I guess, maybe new for Square specifically, but just everything I saw in it was like, I feel like I've seen this before.
Right.
And then just like, I mean, yes, like you said, like the particle effects and graphically it looked pretty good. I mean, obviously the faces don't really animate well, but that's kind of to be expected from Square at this point.
Yeah.
And the particle effects are actually something that's been kind of bothering me in video games since like the PS4 era, where it's just like specific, and it's maybe I'm crazy. I think it's specifically on like PlayStation exclusive stuff. I've noticed it more so than anywhere else, where it's just like there are so many particle effects in everything that you're playing God of War and it just feels like you're getting sandblasted. You're like, do I still have eyebrows? I don't know. It's pretty though. Yeah, I don't know what's going on. Couldn't see what was happening in the game because there was just like sparks and fire and nonsense going off every time I swung my axe. But yeah, maybe it's cool. It's probably cool.
Yeah, I mean, and I get it. I see a brother Gate Gray Monad. He was like, he yawn.
By
the way, before you say that, I want to say,
no, yeah,
I was so annoyed silently when our good brother Colt shouted out Bushido. I was like, ugh. I wish he didn't shout him out.
So
really,
undeserved.
He's so undeserved. And now he's like, I guess the show was okay. I guess. Look at him. Why? I almost wanted to like silence his mic when he was saying his name. So wait, did I say that out loud, everybody? Oops. Okay. So
yeah. Well, and then as far as the like Devil May Cry combat goes, I do wonder that because specifically it's coming from Square, I wonder if it's going to feel maybe a little bit more like a Kingdom Hearts, because that is also in that sort of character action vein. You know what I mean?
I can kind of see that.
Yeah. So I think it might be a little bit more like that, because I'm just thinking based on like their previous games, right? Like I look at 15 specifically, where it did have that sort of action game focus, but it was very much more cinematic, where like you would hit like what is it, X or square,
right,
like 4 or 5 times, and he would just go into this whole crazy combo, and you're like, that's really cool. I don't feel like I'm really doing that, but that's cool that he gets to do that. So I don't know. I don't think it looks bad. I think that there's just a lot of things piling up against it all at the same time that make me just kind of like disinterested, and maybe it's also partially because it's like such a competitive year for games I'm interested in.
Right.
But yeah, it's just like, I think the game looks really kind of like bland, like derivative. And then on top of that, there's also the like, sure is a lot of white folk in this game. You know what I mean? And then you remember all the comments that the guy made, and it's like,
that hurt him.
It's that hurt him bad. It's like, you can have your main character turn into a giant dog demon, and like you can have a dog as part of the combat party who's like summoning magic out of his butt, but you can't have a black guy. Like, what are you saying to me?
And it's
like,
not even just
historical accuracy.
That was the part that was dumb. Is to say it's historically accurate. And again, black people were there back then, 2,000 years at least worth. So yeah, black people would have historically been in this situation. I want to try something really quick, so I want to transition this. So guys in the chat, do me a favor. Do you hear myself and Danny right now? Because I had to do this mid, if you will, show with, or earlier in the show with Colton and Danny. So Danny, do me a favor and talk right now, so to see if they can actually hear you too during this.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
so again, I think the game looks like I think it'll probably be really good for people who, I don't know, maybe have not played a ton of RPGs, or like maybe haven't been super invested in Final Fantasies in particular over the last little while.
Right.
Like I know me specifically, I hadn't played basically any Final Fantasies until 2 years ago, and then I was like, this is one of the most like storied franchises of all video game history. I should go back, and I played it, and I played basically everything from 7 to 15, not including 14, because like I'm not about all that MMO life. I can't get into that. It's just too much.
Yeah.
But I played basically all of those, and I was like, these are fun, but they're also like kind of all the same. And I know that probably a lot of people are going to disagree, because they're going to be like, but in 9 you're a cat boy, and in 10 2 you're a girl, and it's
Right.
like, yeah, but like all the monsters are the same, and like all the
They
summons
are
are
a
the
lot of the
same, and like they
monsters.
have different names. Like
Yeah.
it's all that same vibe, and maybe it's just I did it to myself by playing them all back to back, and I'm just kind of like burnt out on it. So
Yeah.
like, and I'll take responsibility for that. Like I think that might be just
It-
something that's on my own personal side.
It could
but
be a thing of that. And listen, not everybody likes
Yeah.
everything. Some people just don't like Final Fantasy. It is what it is.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't care for Final Fantasy to be action based instead of turn based. Me, I've always been more of an action based guy. I have always preferred action over turn based games personally. So I can't speak for everybody, but this right here speaks to me. For one, with Yoshida being the director, you can see the Devil May Cry influence all over it during the combat. So to me, it's instantly sold me. The unfortunate part is the comments made about black people not being there, and it's not historically
Yeah,
accurate.
like that's a
That's
hard
what's
one to
hurting
shake
it.
off, and I don't know why.
Yeah.
Like,
No,
I don't know
I
why
get
you would
why.
say that.
Yeah, I
No,
don't know why
sorry.
you say that.
Yeah, I understand why it's hard to shake. I don't know why you would say that publicly, even if that's
Yeah.
something that's like written on a whiteboard somewhere.
Yeah.
I don't know why you would come out and be like, because I think it was specifically the answer to a question where somebody was like, "Hey, are there any like people of color in this game?" And he like answered it with that.
Right.
And it's like, hey, there's no correct way to answer that question with a no. Like you may should like if the answer was no, you maybe should have just not answered it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
not even specifically just like people of color in the game, because like obviously representation is a big deal. It's something that you want to have in your games, but not just in terms of like, you know, we want representation and diversity, but it's an important thing in like a big open world RPG like this to have a bunch of different cultures and like groups of people, because then you get to see like those tensions between them, or like get to learn these different cultures. If this entire game is just we're in fantasy England and like I don't know, that seems really boring. And I swear to God, if we get into this game, and because it's a fantasy game, if we get in here and there's like elves and dwarves and like gnomes and stuff, and they still had that comment of like, but they're
Yeah.
gonna be white, then like what
Won't
are
make
we
much
doing?
sense. Yeah, it won't make much sense. Yeah, you know, you just saw right now the Ifrit situation. So here, on here, now they're going to showcase the action here, I believe, right here. I have it muted. I wonder, though, if they try to copyright me for showing this dang trailer. I hope not. It would be such a shame for us to have had such a great conversation for them to get me. But yeah,
No.
like I hear all of that, man, for sure, and I get it.
Yeah.
And I've had this discussion on a few podcasts. Mainly, I was on the Dragon's Den with our good brother Lemon, 108 Dragons TV.
Oh,
And
he's great. Yeah.
he is. And like I'll say, by the way, the visuals on this game are gorgeous. Look at this. It looks really
I agree.
good.
I think some of the facial animations are rough, but otherwise I think
Yeah.
it's pretty good.
I agree with the
Pretty
facial
great.
animations. I like the character design. I like the world. It looks really solid. But no, we had that discussion, man, and I had to point out, like, yeah, you had the Moors, you had everybody back then.
Yeah.
The Moors ran England or the UK for at whatever it was at that point, Britain, Republic Britannica, whatever you want to call it. At a point, they ran it, I believe, for like 500 years, in fact. So to say that out loud, to me,
Right.
I don't know if it was necessarily a thing of inherent racism that he learned or ignorance, but it was definitely ignorance, and not in the sense of
Yeah.
him being mean but spirited.
It
but
must
him
have
not
been ignorance.
understanding.
It must have been ignorance, yeah, because like this is coming out of Square Enix. They're making a game that's like entirely white people, and presumably at least a very small number of the people on their staff are probably white people because they're a Japanese-based company.
Right.
So I would imagine that the majority of them are people of Asian descent.
Mhm.
So it's like I have to assume that it's based on ignorance, but like if you're gonna come out and be like historical accuracy in your game where you're throwing fireballs and turning into a demon dog, then like maybe actually know what the history is. I don't know.
Yeah, you should. And I mean, it's not an excuse for him, right? So he should
No.
look into that before he makes such a statement. And you know, and his PR people should have been on it. I mean, hey,
Yeah.
like no, that's not correct. But man, look at the action. I'm loving it, man.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm sure it'll be really popular. I just don't. It's probably going to be something that I play later. You know what I mean?
I'm wondering. It probably will be later, just because I will be stuck on Diablo 4,
That's a good point.
happily living through hell on earth, killing these demons at this point. So this might be a later game for me too, actually. And it's going to be 70. And if you all don't know, I don't buy 70. I don't spend.
Just wait for that
$70.
sale.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll wait for a sale, possibly, for sure. Especially after that comment, I guess, by this guy. But yeah,
It's not great.
I'll get it at a discounted rate. But yeah, man. No, I definitely think it's just, it wasn't him being intentionally, harmful. It's just the
No.
ignorance. And I've said this before, even on Lemon's podcast. I think the problem is a lot of people, even here in America, black people, whomever, don't understand how influential black people have been in the history of the world and where we've been, at. So I don't think even many of us know that we were there back then. So I can imagine somebody out of our culture not understanding that too.
Also, like, anecdotally, and I don't know if this is like a trend or if it's just my particular friend group. My three biggest Final Fantasy friends who are Final Fantasy, none of them are white. Not a single one of them.
Yeah.
So it's like in my personal world, it's like my friends who are going to care about this game the most are the ones who are going to be least represented, and I think that sucks.
Yeah, no, I get it, man. I get it for sure. You know what I mean? And what's sad to me is I'm in this weird torn position because I like the way the game looks. You know what I mean? I like it. I do want to play it. Probably no rush to play it, of course, but I do want to play it. But that comment is like, it rubs my soul the wrong way. You know what I mean? Just to say, we had a question from my brother Gray. He had said that, that you guys hear about the Diablo will receive additional story content every 3 months. I believe Rod Ferguson came out to correct that. He said, managing expectations, going to talk about seasons and expansions a lot more later, but I am seeing some misinterpreting the GI article. The story that Joe P refers to in seasons are new quest lines that help to provide context to new seasonal mechanics, not a new campaign.
Gotcha. So, like, not necessarily. So there will be new content every 3 months, but to, like, hey, it's going to be smaller things. There will be these bigger story expansions, but it won't be every 3 months. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. Also, just to highlight this, by the way, some people were, I thought, see, now watch this on the screen, guys. You see, he has this thing called the ring of attack and a ring of I forgot what it was called, movement or something like that, or dodging. That's an accessibility feature they added here to kind of simplify the combat for people who have issues with the combat like that. So it can make it easier for you, obviously, and then for those who might have, like I said, they might have all types of conditions or situations that prohibit them from playing the way we would play normally. So this is cool that they've added accessibility options like this to it, I would say. Wow, look at that attack. Ugh. See, I love that type of stuff, man. That looks so dope to me. The game looks really good, I will say. I think that it's going to do well. I wonder if, the mainstays of Final Fantasy fans will be as hip to it as I am, because it's not turn-based, and they've kind of gone away from that, but it looks good to me overall.
Yeah, I mean, I could sort of take it or leave it as far as the turn-based action thing is. Like, I'm fine either way. I think I maybe tend to prefer action games at this point over turn-based, but I don't know. I think either would be fine. I trust Square to make a good Final Fantasy game. I just don't know necessarily that a good Final Fantasy game is a game that I'm super interested in.
Yeah, I hear you. So we're going to move on kind of quickly, because we need to wrap it up. We actually went on way longer than I anticipated, man.
Yeah, well, to be fair, we did spend like 30 minutes trying to fix the show. To fix the fix.
Very true. Very true. So, Danny, what's the next conversation, bro?
Did you want to talk about the 3 leaked games, or did you want to jump straight to Star Wars Celebration?
You can mention the 3 leaked. You know what? No, let's go to Star Wars so we can talk about
just straight
that.
To Star Wars.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's probably for the best. So Star Wars Celebration happened this week, and it was a pretty big deal. It sort of snuck up on me. I forgot that it was happening. Yeah. But we got some really big announcements out of it. So let me start with this. Umbra, what level of Star Wars fan are you? Just out of curiosity.
I would suppose I'm middling, whereas I do love the universe. I do love the lore, but I'm not that Anakin wouldn't have done that. Well, in Star Wars issue number 315 in the Old Testament, in verse Sith 8, he said, "Now I'm not that far gone." You know what I mean?
Gotcha.
So I'm I guess a middle of the road kind of fan where
Yeah.
I love the lore, I love the characters, but I'm not super over the top where Kathleen Kennedy down with her, and this woman is messing up Star Wars.
Gotcha.
I'm not that far into it, you know what I mean? But I do love what Dave Filoni and of course Jon Favreau are doing. I really appreciate what they're doing, and I to give credit, because a lot of people kind of trash Disney. I think Disney is doing things that I like to expand on that universe that way.
For sure.
That's something I would love for Microsoft to do with Halo. Expand on the lore in that universe.
Do some new things.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, I'm really excited about that. That is sort of something that, because when Disney first acquired Star Wars, the first like bunch of projects that they put out, it was like, because I'm a fairly big Star Wars fan. It was like Star Wars had turned to ash in my mouth, and then like yeah, and then sort of it's been kind of crawling back, where it's like The Mandalorian's pretty good, and then Andor's like really good, and I'm there's some of these things that we're gonna talk about in a second here that I'm really excited about. The first one being, of course, this new Ahsoka trailer.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming if you're sort of a middling Star Wars fan, you maybe haven't watched Rebels. Is this correct for me to assume?
I've seen some of it, but not all. But I do know.
Okay.
I do know Ahsoka rather.
Yeah, so this trailer is very much like hey man, you need to go watch Rebels, because they're coming out, they're showing you Rosario Dawson as Ahsoka Tano. Of course, I mean, she was introduced in the Clone Wars show, and she's a big deal. She's honestly probably one of the most powerful Star Wars characters to ever exist, maybe at this point, just because of some lore things that happened at the end of Clone Wars there.
Yeah.
But we're also seeing
the Padawan of Anakin, of course, by the way.
Yeah, because they retconned the whole Star Killer thing from the video games that were originally canon. Same voice actor, yeah. But then we've also seen, as part of this trailer, the whole crew of the Ghost from Rebels in live action form.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, one of them's a robot, and one of them's an alien, so maybe not exactly live action, but you get what I mean. Including possibly the one I'm most excited about is my girl Mary Elizabeth Winstead playing Admiral Hera. That's so cool.
I would say to me the top two who I'm like, yeah, this show is going to be top three. Yeah,
absolutely.
David Tennant, who's going to be in it.
He's coming back as Hu Yang or whatever, the robot. I forget his name.
You have, of course, Lars Mikkelsen, who will be doing the live version of Grand Admiral,
reprising his role.
Exactly, of Grand Admiral Thrawn. And then now, of course, you have Hayden Christensen, who will be playing Anakin in there. So, man, that's all W's, left and right. Yeah.
I'm really, really thrilled with the casting that they announced for this. I think it sounds great. And just the idea of, because this sort of seems like it's going to be not a replacement, but sort of the new canon version of those Heir to the Empire novels that are no longer canon for Star Wars Extended Universe type stuff.
Yeah.
Just because it's centering on Thrawn. And those books, those novels, were really the reason originally why anyone would read any Star Wars books. Like, those were, like, there were other good books, of course, but those were the ones where it was like, you need to get in on this, because even if this wasn't a Star Wars story, it would be a phenomenal story.
So to answer Kay, he asked who was playing Urza. That's Iman Isfandi.
He's unknown to me. Like, I don't know that actor very well, but he looks the part really well.
Yeah, I don't know him either, but he does look the part. Isn't this the guy that played Aladdin, by the way?
It could be. I didn't see the live action Aladdin, so I couldn't tell you.
Yeah, I didn't watch it, but I know his face, and now I'm looking him up right now. Yeah, that's him. His name is Iman Isfandi, and he played Aladdin. If you all didn't see the live action, I'm pretty sure you didn't, because I'm pretty sure it was kind of terrible.
It wasn't that good.
But but no, he's playing Urza. Okay, looks solid.
Cool.
Looks solid, man. And the whole cast is actually a W when you really look through it. Like,
it really is. Yeah, well, because
Elizabeth Winstead, like you said too.
Love her, and then they've also got what is it, Steve Bloom, coming back to at least do the voice of Zeb, which is great.
Nice.
He's like one of the most touted, or at least most
voices.
prolific voice actors of all time.
No
so it's really great to have him back reprising that role.
Yeah.
And we actually already got to see him because he was in an episode of Mandalorian. Spoilers, I guess. He was in it for like 2 seconds, so don't worry too much.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, one of the most legendary voice actors right there. I would love
He's
to get into that.
so
type of
good.
role. Yeah, love him, man.
Yeah. You look at that man, and he looks like the sweetest little flat cap wearing man of all time. And then you see any of his characters, and you're like, what is happening?
Yeah. I mean,
Such a disconnect.
done the voices
But
of
I love it.
from all over, from Wolverine, you know what I mean, to
Oh yeah,
Spike
he's
Spiegel.
everywhere.
Yeah,
Yeah.
man.
If you look up his filmography, you will find several things where you're like,
Mhm.
oh, it turns out Steve Bloom just was my childhood.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Same
It's
thing with like a terrorist
it's like,
man.
or Cree Summers or something like that. Yeah.
Oh
Those-
yeah.
They just shaped
Yeah.
our whole world back. I mean, I don't want to say back then. They shaped
I
the whole
actually
world
just-
from then till now. Really.
Yeah, like I told you earlier, I went back and I replayed the PS2 version of Baldur's Gate Dark
Yeah.
Alliance, the first one.
Mhm.
And I know for a fact Cree Summers is in there. I would not be surprised if the other two are also in there.
Yeah. It's,
If
it's
Tara
possible.
and Steve Bloom.
Yeah, it's very possible. I can
So
see
just
it.
generally speaking, what's your hype level for this Ahsoka show? Because it's
Oh.
pretty much the next thing we're getting.
I would say if I had to do a 1 through 10, I would say a 9. To me,
Yeah.
Rosario Dawson did an excellent job every time she was shown, and she
Yeah.
embodied that character. I know the fan base is hyped for it too, and I know they loved her too. I think Dave Filoni and Favreau, they just know what they're doing, man. And when the way they showcased her,
Yeah.
she pulled out those double lightsabers the way she did. It just looked so well done. The makeup they did is so well done. It looks nice. You could tell.
Yeah,
there's a
it's
solid
crazy
budget. Yeah, it
How
looks
like
good, man.
the Star Wars CG and makeup and everything looks so good,
It
and then you look
does.
over at the Marvel thing that's like pretty much the same company, and you're like,
Yeah.
why is this so much worse? Like, what's
Yeah.
happening here?
Yeah. They need to get some quality control over to the MCU really quick.
Yeah, I'm not sure what's going on over
I'm
there.
not either. Yeah.
But then we also got a bunch of other announcements that we saw less of, and they're further out. But we got 3 brand new movies announced. Probably the biggest one is that Daisy Ridley, who is of course Rey, is coming back to star in a brand new movie that takes place after the sequel trilogy, in which she's going to be trying to like recreate the Jedi Order. It specifically says that she's going to be like trying to track down other Force sensitive people. So I don't know how many, like there might be some popular characters that are maybe still alive in that time period. I don't know how long a Grogu lives or something, but like who's to say? And like reforming the Jedi Order after the fact. And I think that sounds really exciting.
Yeah.
I think people are pretty down on Daisy Ridley in general just because the sequel trilogy was really bad. But I implore you, she is such a good actress, even though she didn't really get to show it in those movies, unfortunately. But she's really good, I promise.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I do have high hopes for this.
Yeah, definitely. And what was the other one that they announced?
Yeah, so the other two are Dave Filoni, who is of course the Mandalorian person. He's sort of known for coming in and sort of cleaning up the timeline because he also was a big part of the Clone Wars show, which came in and like tried to explain away some of the really asinine like dumb decisions that they made in the original, or not the original trilogy, but the prequel trilogy. And I think that they're kind of having him do the same thing for the sequel trilogy with The Mandalorian, but he is creating a movie that is going to close out the direct quote here, close out the interconnected stories told in The Mandalorian, The Book of Boba Fett, and Ahsoka.
Yeah.
So this is theoretically, and you know, if you've been keeping up with The Mandalorian, it seems like this is the direction it's going. They are trying to explain some of the more ridiculous stuff from the sequel trilogy, like how did Palpatine come back? Why was Snoke a clone? Like, what is all of this stuff?
Yeah.
And I really trust Dave Filoni to do a good job with that. He has yet to fail me.
Yeah, I agree.
So,
I agree. Then, of course,
and
like
then-
you had the Andor season 2 is coming. You got the Acolyte, which
Yeah.
is coming. You have the Lando TV series in development. You have
yeah. Oh,
the Young
there were a
Jedi
ton of
Adventures.
others.
Yeah,
A ton of other shows that were like, this is getting a season 2, this is getting a season 3.
yeah.
But the other movie that was announced was the only other one is James Mangold, who was famously the director of Logan, the
Right.
Old Man Logan movie.
Mm-hmm. He's the one. that
He
owns the
is-
Jedi movie, right?
Yes, so he's doing one that's focused in the Dawn of the Jedi time period, which is what they're calling it now. They put up like a whole
Nice.
timeline,
Yeah.
which is 25,000 years before the prequels, and he just describing it as a biblical epic that will explain where the Force came from, how it was discovered, and how it was first used. And I'm going to be honest, this is probably the one I'm most worried about.
Use the Force, Luke.
Yeah, because I feel like explaining the Force is something that we don't really necessarily need. I remember midichlorians being specifically a really hated
I
thing,
remember that.
and I
Yeah.
and I don't think necessarily that going even further back in time and being like, yeah, so we found the Force. It was in this rock. It was over here. Like I'm sure it won't be that, but like there is such thing as too much information about these things.
Yeah.
So I don't know that we necessarily need that, but I mean, I really like Logan, so I'm hoping that the director can at least make a really good movie out of this thing that I don't feel like we need. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
we'll see what happens. I mean, some good things have happened out of directors coming over that we
Yeah.
possibly didn't really trust like that, to be fair, too. So we'll see. I mean, nobody
Yeah.
had thought that Dave Filoni would do what he's doing until he did.
that's probably true. Yeah.
So
This has me really excited though in general because they're not sort of putting themselves in this corner, right? I think a lot of people were afraid that when they finally started announcing new Star Wars movies, because of course it's been a while since we've had one, that they were going to just like announce a whole new trilogy of like, hey, there's 7 new movies and they're all going to star this guy, and then like they're just going to like go in that direction completely blindfolded and have no idea where they're going. But I really like this idea of instead having 3 different movies that are in completely different time periods. So they don't have to worry about like, hey, we're working on these 3 movies at the same time, but they don't have to worry about them like connecting with each other directly. They don't have to worry about like making sure all these directors are on the same page because they're like literally thousands of years apart in the timeline.
Right.
And I think that that's going to give the directors more freedom and the ability to sort of make their own story
That's the
in a
beauty
way
of
that doesn't annoy people as much.
that is the beauty
Uh,
of it. Those
yeah.
types of things are the best. The same thing with The Mandalorian, because it isn't held back by a pre-existing lore to that degree. You know what I mean? So I
Yeah.
agree with you on that one.
Yeah, and I think it's a really good idea because then also it's like, hey, if like this James Mangold one about the midichlorians or whatever ends up not being good, then you can just not follow up on that, right? And you can just be like, okay, well, the Dave Filoni one did really well, so we're going to bring him back and do a sequel on this, or we're going to continue. I think the one that for sure has to continue regardless would be the Daisy Ridley led one, because I think that is the most important one, because that's how we move forward, right? Star Wars is a universe that is always evolving and is having to continually, introduce new characters and new droids and like sell new merch because it's a really big deal for Disney. And so it's this thing where that movie, the Daisy Ridley led one, is sort of a roadmap to the future of what Star Wars is going to be. The Dave Filoni one is a cleanup crew on sort of cleaning up the mess of what they accidentally did before. And then the James Mangold one is like just for fun, like maybe an art piece, you know what I mean? And I think that's a really fun idea. I like that they're taking more chances and being like, which of these things is going to work out? I think that's a really smart idea.
Yeah, I'm with you on that, brother. Hey, so we're gonna kind of wrap it up right now because we have gone way longer than we both intended. Obviously, we had the issues at the beginning, and I want to thank Cole Eastwood first and foremost for joining us. I shared his link in the chat, but again, I'm pretty sure all of you are subscribed or at least know where to find him. But even if not, please make your way over there and give our brother a sub. And I mean, good dude, genuine good dude. I've talked to him behind the scenes. The man is who he is. He's not some act or something like that. You know what I mean? And for him to grace us within me asking him like last second, basically, I just floated the idea out there, and he was like, "Yeah, okay, yeah, I'll come in for 30 minutes." I'm like, wow, I didn't expect that. You know what I mean? So much love to him. Much love to everybody in the chat for coming through and supporting me and us, of course, and giving love.
Yes,
really
thank you very
appreciate
much.
all. Yeah, thank you all so much. The outpouring of love has been tremendous. I saw Brian. He said, "Give me some Motown '70s." So you can't tempt me with music because I'll start singing. You know what I mean?
Oh no!
Don't lead it. Don't do that to me. I'm gonna start singing. And he said some Motown. So one of the songs I think of is the Temptations. When I think of Motown, you know what I mean? I start thinking of I don't know. I start thinking of David Ruffin and Ain't Too Proud to Beg. So I've heard a crying man is half a man with no sense of pride. Well, if I gotta cry to keep you, I don't mind weeping if it'll keep you by my side. Ain't too proud to beg. So I'm begging all of y'all, come back.
Begging you.
Come back for a brother,
We will hopefully have all of the technical issues solved by then.
Absolutely.
I can't promise that, but I'm hoping for it.
I don't make any
hold on
promises.
real fast.
No promises.
Real fast. In the chat, C Steph, a good friend of the show, Says, stop giving me Jedi stuff. I want Sith movies. Good news for you, C Steph, is they actually also showed us footage for a show called The Acolyte, which is focusing on the Sith during the High Republic. So it's when the Sith are like the underdogs and are sort of being more scrappy. So I think that's the show for you, bud.
There you go.
So it's they got you covered, man.
Steph would want the damn Sith. You evil bastard, yeah.
Yeah.
But no, much love to everybody in the chat. We're going to sign off here because we've been running long, and I have to take care of a few things, unfortunately. Again, we will have a much better produced show next time. I'll make sure of it, and to get things in order. I thought they were in order, guys. I was told to be prepared for things to go wrong. I was like in my head, like, nah, I'm good. It's gonna go right.
Yeah.
And it went wrong. Just to say, excuse me for the background noise.
Sirens are on our end.
It's just me. So I was gonna say, Danny,
yes,
sign out for us, brother. Tell everybody where they can find you. Give out your socials. Give out your social security. Give out your number,
okay.
Your next
yeah. So my social security number, my Venmo number is just send me all your money. No, so you can find me on Twitter at Daniel J McG, or at my personal YouTube channel at just Daniel McG. I talk about all the same stuff that we're going to be talking about on this podcast, being video game news, comic book things, just anything really pop culture that comes to mind. And that's that's where you can find me. It's going to be a good time. Umbra, where can they find you?
Well, you all can find me, of course, on Twitter, Infinite Umbra or Umbra Infinite. You will find me either way. And of course, I'm on three main podcasts, and I guest appear on other podcasts too, if you all have seen. I've been told I'm a podcast thought. I don't know.
A little bit.
I don't know if that's a positive or not. I don't know.
It's not, but also it's really, they're not saying it as a positive, but I think it could be one.
Yeah. That's true. But yeah, so you all can find me on Tuesdays on our good brother Boom's podcast, The Xbox Factor. Me, myself, and Danny will be there actually. And Retry.
True.
We have a great cast with us going, by the way. Myself,
yeah, Retry, who I think is still in the chat even.
Yeah, much love to Retry, Game Pass Daily. If you haven't subscribed to him, give him a check out too. Him and Web Dave run a great podcast on Sundays.
Yeah, they've both also been big helps on getting this show off the ground.
They really have. Much love to you guys. Tuesdays you'll find me on Xbox Factor. Thursdays now, it's from 7 o'clock. We're trying to keep it light. I kind of didn't explain that to you guys. So I'm aiming for an hour and a half, right? I don't want to cut into everybody because we got a lot of brothers in the community who have shows running too right now. So I don't want to cut into them, and I know they wouldn't want to cut into me. I was floating the idea of starting a little bit earlier just, to kind of avoid crossover and hit harming each other in some possible way. But,
yeah, we're still hammering out some of the specifics.
Yeah, we might change, we might not, we might, we'll see what happens in the future. Again, I don't want to step on anybody's toes. So we're aiming for kind of an hour thing, hour and a half at most. And so if you all do give us your views, which we greatly appreciate and want, you don't have to give a long time investment. We don't want to be something where you're here, hitting our good brothers on the East Coast, Iron Lords podcast numbers, or Rand and Jazz numbers nowadays. They're hitting like 4 and 5 hours. We're not trying to go that far with it. And much love, because Rand and Jazz, man, they can talk, and I just love hearing them talk. They're just great dudes, and they so well knowledgeable about everything. I know why people love them, because they just.
We'll have to get them on the show at some point.
Yeah, they're just dope, and I love listening to them. Been listening to them for years. But yeah, so. You again, also, of course, you can find me here on Thursdays. Like I said, on Fridays, tomorrow, you'll find me on Xbox Infinite podcast with myself, Riskic, Doom Cutie. And this week will be Garuda Intruda with us, and Clowns. Clowns will be with us this week as a guest. And usually is obviously Jedi Knight Peter is my other co-host. So come by tomorrow for the Xbox Infinite podcast at 8 o'clock Eastern time. 7 o'clock for me. I'm Central Time, the best time. Anyway, yeah, and thank you all for the love again. We're going to get out of here. Come back and join us next time. And we are leaving. Later, guys.